Welcome back to Dirty Pretty, the space where we own our feelings, honor our experience, share unfiltered truths, and talk shit, all through a lens of love. Today, it is my pleasure to introduce you to a spiritual business coach, whom is someone I met over the internet almost 8 years ago that I now consider one of my very best friends, Erin Nicole Porter. Erin has made embracing imperfection, letting go, and surrendering into a lucrative business model and a sustainable way of life. Sitting atop a multiple six-figure brand, she has made facilitating quantum transformation for others her personal and professional purpose. Using a nuanced, trauma-informed sales approach, Erin invites all to become a student of their soul by mining cues of personal energetics. Come defy standards that force hustle and humble yourself to the power play and pleasure have on creating internal healing and transformation with Erin. Welcome.
Thank you. That was so good. I was like, wait, can I keep that? Can I get that written down?
Yes, you can have this. It'll be in the caption whenever I post it. But it's so interesting, and I say this on every podcast or video recording, that people are often like, wow, that sounds so amazing. And it's just, I go to your website and I just pick out some like really shiny highlighting nuggets of you and just put it into this own little 1 minute blurb, but it's all you. So thank you for saying that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, of course. So where we usually start in this is like getting to know you, right? And I wanted to start in a place that's like, how did Erin get here? How did Erin become this multiple six-figure, nuanced, badass business coach, spiritual business coach, I might say? How did you get to this place in your professional career, being a six-figure brand?
Yeah, really, I feel like the first thing that came up when you said that was I learned from how much can I burn out, and then discovered, okay, well, I couldn't keep operating that way. And so, like, even in childhood, my whole MO was like, how much can I go? How much can I achieve? How much can I do?
Mhm.
And I could hold all of it in a really, like, I have a big, beautiful capacity, which is both a gift and also like you don't have the awareness of sometimes of like, how much you're holding or how burnt out you are. And so that trickled into business. And as I was growing my business, I had different iterations. I did health and wellness coaching. That's when we met back in the day, and then transitioned into
Way
business,
back there.
right? Business and like all of the inner work. And what I realized was I kept chasing different things that I thought were going to help me be successful. And what I realized was, guess who's the common denominator in all of these loops and cycles? Like I was. And so I realized that I couldn't just keep following everybody else's strategy and everybody else's way of doing things. I was like, what's actually going to be sustainable for me? And where am I not operating from like a part of myself that's trying to validate worthiness and enoughness? And what does it actually mean to run a business from my truth and from a place that's regulated and that's not trying to just get attention and achieve. Like, yes, I love all of those things, and I don't think any of those are wrong or bad, but like, where is it coming from, truth versus a part? And so that kind of led me into all of the subconscious reprogramming work, the somatic work, and really understanding and then helping other people do the same with growing their businesses. And also looking at business as very much a spiritual internal journey, just as much as it is the external. So yeah, that is kind of like burnout city over and over and over again. I was like, all right, something's got to change, and it's not my external environment that needs to, it's my internal home.
Yeah. So can you describe for us, and I'm sure it's not just one thing, but like what was the straw that broke the camel's back? That was like, yes, I know you keep saying it all came back to me. I was the common denominator, but like, were you getting sick all the time? Right. Because like normally there is some sort of cue that draws your attention towards it, right? Because
Mhm.
unless there's a problem with the way that we're moving, or we personally grow and identify that that's a stale, outdated maneuver or habit that we have, there tends to be something that like sets the light bulb off. That's like, this isn't working for me. Because sometimes even when it's not working for you, it could be working for your audience, right? You could be getting all of the validation that you need, but still you're over here like getting sick or maybe, feeling that burnout sensation. So can you describe maybe like what it was that made that light bulb go off in case somebody watching or listening to this is like, yeah, I mean, I'm having a lot of success and I'm burnt out. So like, I'm afraid to leave this model.
hmm Yeah, and it's funny. It actually wasn't anything related. I mean, it was related to business, but the like really big moment was when my ex and I had broken up. And I was in actually a cycle of every person that I had been in a relationship with at that time. The relationship ended because they cheated on me. And they had cheated on me, but I had tolerated it for even after, would try to make it work. But I would be the one that would be like bending over backwards, like, you're the one that cheated, but I'm over here like again trying to get you to see that I'm enough, when really I was not feeling that for myself and was letting, bad behavior continue for way too long. And so when I realized that something needed to change, that's when I found inner child work. And so that's really what opened me up to all of this. So it's like, yes, there were moments in business where like I got stuck at different income levels and things like that happened. And I was like, okay, I'm either repeating this cycle of stuck at this income level or had a bunch of money and now the money's all gone again. Like those things popped up. But like the catalyst moment was I'm tolerating a lot of shit and I am the common denominator. And it's not just happening in my business, it's happening in this area of life. And it was the moment too in that where I was like, okay, if this 6 year relationship is burning down, I need to also like reinvent. I'm going to take this as an opportunity to reinvent the way that I see myself, that I show up for myself, because that's all I had. I mean, in that moment, we were supposed to be re-signing a lease and moving back up to LA. And within 3 days, I took the dog. I just had Ziggy at the time and had to find an apartment. And I was like, oh shit, like I have to really rely on my business. And we had kind of like split bills and all of that kind of stuff. And I was like, all right, we really got to go in. But I was like, I have to take my power back. I have to own the work that I'm doing and stop kind of like dabbling in this, like settling for just enough. And I feel like that was also a big cycle that got broken in that too, is this constant feeling of like just enough in business, money, men, you name it. So I
Mhm.
forget what your question was, but that's kind of where we ended on that.
I love it. The question was, what was that like aha moment that made it
Yeah,
seem like,
yeah.
yeah, this is something that I have to change. And it's not just like, about the boyfriend. He's got to go because, he's made huge mistakes, which like while you're saying that, I'm like, I'm thinking of Pretty Woman when she holds up the bag. She's like, big mistake, huge. Like, and I'm just thinking that about you. Like, that was a huge mistake on their part, but like, look at what it opened up for you, right? So,
Mhm.
like, we're talking about that aha moment that was like, whoa, the common denominator is me, but here was the straw that broke the camel's back. And so you said like it started with your relationship dissolving, and then it looks like, you moving into other things were dissolving, right? Kind of like that quicksand period of like, whoa, I have to rely on my business.
Yeah, and I would say too, I mean, at that point in time, I had really started shifting into more of the business coaching because I've been doing marketing coaching, content coaching since, gosh, like 2009. Like I was doing that on the side for like other businesses and universities. And I had kept going back and forth in between, like I was doing health, wellness, personal training, and had started adding in more of the business stuff. But I was like, okay, it's time to fully let this thing go. My personal training clients I started to let go of. I started to let go of like all my online health and fitness courses and really went all in with this thing. And I think that's also scary when we're in transition too, is to be like, all right, I'm just gonna go for it and I'm just gonna kind of burn the bridges. And again, it was one of those things where I felt this way a lot in the last year too. I think everything kind of comes into a cycle. But you get to certain points where even something that's like 1% out of alignment can't stay. And I think sometimes we can kind of are like, all right, well, it's 99% good and it can stay and I don't have to deal with it right now because I have other things that are, 80% out of alignment and I need to clean that up. I feel like for me in that moment, and again, it happened recently within the last year, it was like, no, you can't even have anything that's 1% out of alignment in your life. And if you try to ignore it, we're just gonna hit you in the face with it. And so I think you get to that point in your businesses, or the different chapters of your business where you're like, I can't not look at this anymore.
Yeah. So for those that are watching and listening and they're seeing themselves or hearing themselves in what you're saying, Give us a little nugget about like why. Why can you not sustain something that's even 1% not in alignment? Why is that so important to look for within yourself? Like, right, because that's your responsibility to admit that to yourself.
Mhm.
So why is that significant? Because somebody could be like, but 99 is good. And you're saying, no, that one thing that's out of alignment still has to go. So why? Why is that necessary?
Yeah, I mean, to your point, like you could be fine, right? Like you could deal with the 99% and that's good, but it's like if you're somebody that you're not willing to settle for like the mediocre and you want everything that it is that you want in life, like why would you not clean up even the 1%? And two, sometimes those 1% leaks are bigger than the 99% leaks, in my opinion, because they're so unconscious. And it's like if you think of a faucet and you would leave a faucet on for years, that little tiny leak, it adds up over time. So while in the moment it's like, oh, okay, well, that's only 1%, that compounds over time. And then before you know it, it has become a 99%. And I think we get into a place often where we're okay with tolerating a lot of different things. And it's like, okay, well, I can just deal with it. But then it's like that groove gets deeper and deeper. And so you also have to have a time in your life where you're like, okay, well, I'm not going to tolerate it, letting it get to the 99%. I feel like
Mhm.
for me, I did that often. I was like, okay, well, I can handle it, I can hold it. And so if it needs to leak to that 99%, I'll deal with it then. But then we get into this pattern of like, okay, well, I'll just wait till something becomes chaotic or destructive to deal with it. And now I got to come all the way back up and come out of this thing. And I used to get a lot of pride from doing that, where like if I was going to burn out or shit was going to hit the fan, like I'd come back like a warrior queen. And that's how I got motivation. That's how I got like worthiness, enoughness, validation. It's like, fuck you, I'll show you, I'll prove you. And like part of that is just like my inherent nature, but like I would
Yeah.
unconsciously recreate situations. So to your answer, why it's like, why would you keep putting yourself unconsciously in these places where you're getting a need met by letting things drip for a long period of time? And why not do the discomfort that you have to do to sit and be with that thing in that and either let it go, clean it up, or stop tolerating whatever you need to tolerate?
Yeah, so going back to what you said at the beginning, like you have a big, beautiful capacity, right? Like I know I have a big, beautiful capacity as well. However, in my perspective, what happens to me is if I tolerate anything that is not congruent for me, that then becomes a dialogue that I have with myself, right? Oh, I let people treat me this way. That feels bad for me. And then all of a sudden that becomes a trickle down effect. And like you said, the leaky faucet, that tiny, tiny little marble becomes a huge snowball, right? And then all of a sudden, it's not just happening in that one relationship. Then
Yeah.
it's like, oh, wait, this 1% happens here with, the boyfriend that cheated on me, because I've been there too, where you go back and you feel like there was something that you didn't do well enough to prove that you were worthy of their honorable, affection and intention and trust and loyalty, right? And then all of a sudden you look at your family dynamic and you're like, wait, there's that 1% there. Then your work and then wait, there's that 1% there. And then in all your commitments to yourself, right? And so I think that that's important to point out because everybody has a different capacity and whatever your capacity is beautiful. Really respect that because that's your informant. However, like people often say, how you do one thing is how you do most things. And so if you're noticing it in one area, is it just really that one area? Or is it you're only accepting 99% everywhere? And then it also becomes what I heard within what you were saying. And so correct me if I'm hearing this wrong. It becomes a situation of I'm willing to accept things to be hard, right?
Mhm.
Like I am a big warrior bitch. King Kong don't got shit on me when I'm coming with a force, right? Like I relate to that energy, right? That is that inherent what I would describe a little bit of hustle mentality of like, give me your worst because I'll destroy you. And then you find pride in that. But then
Mhm.
if you really drill that down, it's like, oh, I actually welcome things to be hard for me. And is that how you would define a little bit, or in some way, shape, or form, which I'm also open to hearing your definition of what a hustle mentality might constitute, considering that that is what you encourage people to defy sometimes?
Yeah, like I feel like there's always pendulum swings that we experience. Like there was the boss babe hustle, go go go, do 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 culture, and like obviously I think just in a Western society that's kind of naturally we see that often, and that's kind of always there. And then I think there has been a big swing to uh where it's kind of like more of that, what do they call it, like soft movement, whatever we want to call it there.
Yes.
And those are the two movements. And I don't think either one of those is bad or wrong. I'm a hustler. I have momentum. I love going. I love achieving. But there's a difference between like when are these coming from parts of us and not coming from our truth, and then it's causing disruption in our nervous system. That's where I'm looking at, because some people do have that hustle mentality, and like that's just part of who they are. I'm that. I remember kind of in my swing from I was like, oh, well, now I'm hustling too much and I'm pushing too much. I have too much ambition. I say that with quotes if you're listening to it. I need to be more of this soft, feminine, flowy. And sure, I was able to invite some of that in, but what happened was is I kind of got stuck there a little bit. And
Mhm.
I made the parts of me that used to have drive bad because I saw everybody talking about, oh, now that's bad. We're all over here and we shouldn't be, ambitious or like driving or pushing. And I was like, oh shit, like, well, yeah, I burnt out doing that. And so what I had to kind of find, because it can get confusing. So you're like, oh shit, am I doing this from like a part of me? Am I doing this from truth? And what I always come back to, it's like, what's the energy behind the action? It's like, I have to find like, yes, I'm not pushing and forcing myself from the energy of, if I do that, then I'm going to get some sort of like validation or need met, versus, okay, there's a part of me that's just who I am. So I feel like that's always what I'm helping people kind of figure out is like, yes, if you're somebody that has a lot of drive, you have a lot of ambition, let's just make sure that like this is actually true in your core of what you want, and you're not doing it from the wounded little orphanage that lives inside of you that's like trying to get it like figure out like how do we get safety in all of this. And if that's like is part of your identity, like I'm an Aries, like that's lives inside of me to be like, let's fucking go, then okay, like let's invite that in. So yeah, I feel like it comes back to like energy behind the action
Mhm.
always.
And I agree with that. I say it differently, but I also believe in energy. Like energy is one of my core foundational values, just as like being an individual. I say, what is the intention behind the action? Like, what
Mhm.
is the driving force, right? Because, like I've shared with you all, Erin is my friend. So she knows me, and I have the pleasure of working with her on my business. And a part of her gift is that she does streamline it to you and your personality, because not everybody is going to run a sustainable business the same way. And so for me, I can be very neurotic, and that feeds my hustle a lot of times, right? It's like I don't like things to linger, because then I also know that very woo soft side as me, as you put it, can like work a hardcore relax. She does a sloth like nobody else. And sometimes if I let that thing go, it goes. It's like la, 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 out the other side of my brain, right? And so that neuroses that I have to like check boxes sometimes is in service of that ambition that I have to also, really make myself proud. And that's a part
Mhm.
of capacity too, right? Is to understand, like you said, what's the energy driving it, what's behind it. And so, from a spiritual place, though, I feel like sometimes people might trip up when they're like business coach, they feel like they get, because that sounds logical, right? Like people think they have a concept of business. Most people our age have worked, they have a general idea of how things go, and that there's a result that you need to be producing, whether you run your business or you're an employee of a business. So, give us some, breadcrumbs of how the spiritual comes into play, because my experience is those people that are hustle are going to get the business side of it, but then maybe like be turned off a little bit when they hear the spiritual. They're like, I don't want any of that, right? So give them a little concept or a little idea of, what that means as far as business is concerned.
Yeah. So I think everyone can probably agree with this, whether you're into the spirituality piece or not, is like that business is the biggest personal growth and spiritual journey that you will ever go on. I didn't know that when I signed up for a Beachbody Challenge Pack, which was my intro drug into entrepreneurship back in like 2011. Like, I didn't know that's what I was signing up for, to like go on this deep, lifelong healing journey. Cause, like, what the fuck, like, like. That's how I felt. But in all reality, like that, you can't outrun like when okay, so when you're a personal brand, it is you that is showing up. Even if you have a product-based business, guess who's still showing up and like they have to connect with the founder, they have to connect with your story. You're the one that is putting everything on the line. That's going to bring up all of your shit. Like that's going to bring up your childhood trauma. That's going to bring up your attachment dynamics because everything in business is a relational dynamic. That's going to bring up all of your core wounds. And sure, you could probably avoid all of those things and probably feel a lot of burnout, dysregulation, and everything else underneath the sun. But it is a spiritual journey because it's like you are an essence. And I think we get more tied up into like what we do as business owners versus who we be, but it's like it's your being that is the one that ends up putting everything out into the world. And so for me, it's a spiritual journey because I'm constantly being mirrored with things in my business that's unlocking parts of myself, either things that I get to like lean in and work on, or things that I am like, oh, I actually want to own more of that. And so when you do that, when you get the external reflection for the internal, and then you adjust or alchemize or kind of tap into whatever is happening internally, it's like everything else in your business ends up aligning with more ease. I don't want to say it's easy because like then you become even more self-aware and you're like, shit, everything is now just like happening constantly and like you have so much awareness of it. But for me, it's like that spiritual component, especially in the work that I do, is I couldn't separate them anymore at this point. It's like hard for me to even think about like what is one versus one is the other. But it's like you have to kind of lean into that to create sustainability. I think I'll come back to that piece in it because it's like, again, you could ignore all of this, but I'd be curious how sustainable your business is, not just from a financial standpoint, but from like your own energy. Like, even if we just go like burnout, alignment, happiness, a lot of the people that ignore that, ignore the parts of themselves, shove all of that down and just keep operating in a way that they think that they have to be successful. So for me, the spiritual piece is very much like letting myself just go on this constant journey of learning so then my external, my internal can match and feel in deep alignment.
Mm. And you work with people in corporate America, right? I'm getting that
Mhm.
right, right? Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So on one of the previous podcasts I shared with the audience, it is possible to phone it in. Like it is possible to just phone it in your life everywhere because as sure as you're sitting here saying this, that like your development is a spiritual process because you are in essence. I can feel my old self speaking through the voices of maybe people in the audience that are listening or watching right now being like, that's not true. I'm not feeling any spiritual awakening when I go into my job every day. But I also think that it's important to look at, how invested are you in that job, in that role, right? So if you're not having that spiritual experience, it doesn't necessarily mean you're in the wrong role because it's not wrong to phone it in. Like I've shared with my audience, being a project manager was something that I was good at, but there would be times I was on a phone call and I would be like in the ether somewhere. And then I'd come back in and be like, oh shit, out of guilt because,
Mhm.
I want to always show up my best, but I didn't necessarily need to be like tuned in and it's so intense about it. Whereas in what I find, and you can correct me if you feel differently, when you're doing something that is, a part of your soul, something that you're giving of yourself as a part of your contribution because it feeds you to do that, it is a spiritual experience. And there's a quote, I can't remember who said it, I'll look for it, but it's a book, and he says, "My work is my life. I am my work. I do not distinguish." However, if you are somebody that phones it in, that can be fine. It just is kind of like, what are you getting out of that experience? And it could be that that's what you want. You want to go to work every day and then come home and not really have so much invested in that because you have other things that are more substantial for you to be concerned about. So for somebody that's watching this and listening to this right now, and they're like, okay, I think that I really like what Erin is talking about. And I feel like maybe I could do that. I have the both and, which is what I consider you have. Like you have that masculine and feminine energy really set to a nice balance for yourself. What are some of the challenges that you find given this expertise, given that this is your profession? What challenges you in this role?
Like challenges me in terms of like like growing business.
Just you personally. It could be that if that's what comes up for you, but just what challenges Erin to function as a spiritual business coach?
Oh, well, yeah, I can't run from any of my shit anymore. That's a pain in the ass, right? Like, like for real. Like,
Is.
I feel like there's sometimes where I'm like, man, like every once in a while I'll have like a moment of like, I wish I couldn't see everything that I see, but I can't not see things that I see or like know things that I know. And I'm sure if maybe you're not in the depths of this work, you can maybe turn that off, but it's like I can't turn that off. And that's a challenge sometimes because it's like I couldn't push and try to force myself to do something that would end up feeling out of alignment. I mean, I could, but it would at this point like make every part of my body flip and turn upside down. So it's like I think the biggest challenge is like once you know and you start to feel into everything, it's like you can't really turn that off or come back from that, which
Mm,
is great because it helps you to fuel and bring fire to your mission, but also like again, everything becomes a spiritual journey. And not that I go in and like dissect everything that's happening in my life. I feel like the biggest thing that I've had to come to terms to is like, because this is what I used to do in my healing journey. I tried to control my healing path because I was
mm.
like, oh, if I can heal this thing, then I'll get this prize and I'll get the money, I'll get the success, I'll get this. So my healing path, if you will, became this sense of control to try to fix myself unconsciously to get what it is that I want. And so that became a big challenge for a while because I wasn't sure I was healing, but I was looping in a lot of processing
Mhm.
versus actually moving forward. And then I again was putting everything. I was like, okay, if I can heal my money shit, then I'll get the prize of more money. And so it's like I think the challenge sometimes can be like, yes, be so self-aware. Yes, have the awareness. Yes, know that everything's a spiritual journey, but also like just fucking live too and be and like let life bring you what it needs to bring you versus you always going on like a fishing fixing expedition within your healing journey as well. Like I think there's a time and place to be like, ooh, that popped up for me and I'm gonna deep dive into it. And also time, like life will bring you enough of it, of what you need to work on. Like I say this often to students in client sessions. It's like just coaching somebody could be its own personal growth journey in itself because like all of your stuff gets mirrored up. So yeah, I think that's been like the biggest challenge has been in the healing work or in the spiritual work, not going on a fishing fixing expedition and creating this like unconscious power dynamic within myself of if I heal something, then I'll get what I want. Because now I've just taken that whole external achievement thing and I've turned it internally. And like that becomes a whole process in itself. And like just living and being and breathing and letting it come to me, which also brings up a whole sense of like, which I think everyone probably can relate to of not controlling everything within your business and your journey too.
Yes, I love that. Do not make it a fishing fixing expedition. That is very well worded, but also very hard to say. And I think that that's important because this is not about going internally with a magnifying glass and trying to spot all the things because you'll never spot them. And then you also drive yourself crazy. Like
Yeah.
you will. And then it comes to a point where then also you're like, am I actually being my friend through all of this? Am I actually on my own side if I'm picking myself apart, which is like the thing you don't want from the environment. Like you don't want that from community. Why would you do that to yourself? Right. And so I haven't asked anybody this question yet. And I'm like, Erin can handle it. Erin can take it. Sometimes as coaches, we come into containership with, a discovery call or somebody that wants to work with us. Maybe it's not a discovery call. Maybe they just come into your DMs or your email and they're like, I don't care what it takes. I just want to work with you. Give us an example of someone that you wouldn't work with
Like I wouldn't work with as like hiring a mentor.
as they hired you.
Oh, that's a good question. I feel like if someone came to me and they weren't willing to admit that they're a common denominator and they can't take any personal responsibility, I'm like, I can't help you. Like if everything is everybody else's problem and I'm stuck in my business because of this person, this, and this, and they're not seeing that they're a common denominator, or there's a lot of blame from their past in what they've experienced in business and coaching. And I'll give more on that in a second. Like that's also a big piece because I used to find a lot of joy in rescuing people from shitty past business things. And I was like, oh, well, I know I'm not that way. Like, I'm not somebody that's gonna like trigger your trauma and, do all of these things. Like, I'm a good coach. I'm a good person. And so I used to get a lot of validation from people who like had a ton of like shitty past coaching experiences, and then like I got to be the rescuer and be like, look, I can show you like that business is different. And like, yes, of course I can, but like there was that 1% part of me that was like almost doing it to validate my ego, to show you like I'm actually a good person. And so like I've had to really watch that when people are like come in and like the only thing that they tell me is every bad coaching experience that they've had. Because I'm like, ooh, like, okay, like can I actually help them and can I stay in my truth? Or am I getting some sort of like unconscious validation, and are they taking responsibility for their pieces in it or not? So like that's a big thing that I watch for, is like, can you own your shit in whatever has happened in your life, in your business? And are you willing to change? Like, are you willing to try things differently? Because sometimes we say that we are, but our words and our actions don't align in that. So I think that that's something that's really like important, what I look for too.
Yeah. I can admit this. I went to Erin because I was like, look, marketing is not my thing. Like, it's not how my brain functions, right? If you want me to like pontificate and give reflection, I can do that all day long. Write something, be poetic, say something that is noteworthy, like that's fine. But I had to go to Erin and be like, this, I need help with this because I don't have the capacity to add this onto everything else. And so I
Mhm.
outsourced that, right? And I think that that's a part of that humility as well, being like, I know what I need. It's not the world, it's me. I don't have the energy to pursue the finer tooth combs or the finer tooth points of this. I need someone to help me, and that's where you came in. And the other aspect of that, with the coaching, and I would call it being in a certain threshold. I agree with you. There were times in my coaching career where it was like, I'll take anybody, right? Especially when you're new, right? And it's not because you don't have any ethos and you don't have any scruples. It's because you're starting out and you need experience somehow. And like that's how everybody starts, how every business starts. But like there is a certain threshold that I would require an individual to be at in order for me to take them on. And that's what I hear you saying, right? Like if you're already at a place where you're not taking ownership of, yes, the common denominator is me, or like, no, I don't like to do marketing, I need somebody to help me with that thing, right? Then yeah, you're not at that threshold where you can meet each other and be like, this is the jumping off point to move forward. We're not going backwards, we're moving forward, right? So with that being, something that challenges you, what has these challenges that you're facing with meeting people revealed to you about yourself? I know you said that, this work causes you to go inwards all the time. So, and yes, you understand that you're the both and of that hustle and also that softness, but what has meeting people in their challenges and having the certain threshold with people revealed to you about you?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is that I always love to like rescue and fix people, like in the past. Like that was like a big thing for me, where I got a lot of validation because I'm also good at what I do, and I know that I can do it. I know I can provide a transformation, but there was a part of me for the longest time that felt really good rescuing people out of their situations and their hardships. And that was what it ended up revealing to me, was I couldn't be in my own discomfort. And so if you were in discomfort, if I can just fix your discomfort, I don't have to feel my own discomfort. You don't have to feel your discomfort, and now we're good. So like, I mean, we're talking the essence of codependency here, is what it revealed to me, is like how many of those patterns that I have of like, if I can just make everything okay around me, then I'll be good. And so the invitation for myself became, one, can you be in your experience and be having the results or the not results or whatever is going on in your life, and me be here staying in my truth, knowing and believing like, okay, I am good at what I do no matter what's happening externally, and I don't have to fix you. And where am I avoiding my own discomfort? By doing different coping strategies, whether that's like, numbing out, scrolling, avoiding, going up into my head versus being in my body and feeling and being with everything, and trying to fill this like void, which again, it's like, it would prove to me that if I could help you it would prove my not enoughness wound that I actually was good enough, right? So it's like, let me just kind of always put myself in those situations so I didn't have to feel that. I didn't have to feel the parts of me that didn't feel good enough, because I could find ways to always prove that I was. So I think the biggest thing that it taught me about myself was like, one, I was a big fixer, rescuer, wanted to save everybody, wanted to be seen as the good person in that. And two, I was avoiding a lot of my own discomfort. And so my invitation always is like, how much can I be with my own discomfort? How much can I feel what's happening and let it move through me without trying to agendify what's happening? And which led me to like a big term that I love that a mentor shared with me once, which was like being with agendaless presence. Like, can I be with the presence of what's here without an agenda? And that's what I feel like I've really like cultivated in all this work is like I can be a agendaless presence with you. Like you can have your experience and I can show up and be there, but also I can do that with my own internal parts and self too.
Yeah, I hear like, there's no convincing that needs to be done to validate you.
Hmm.
I think that a lot of times people come to coaches thinking that, we're going to have the solution. And, in my containers, I call it sitting in your shit, right? Like you're in your shit. And until somebody is willing to see that they're in their shit, no amount of words or, fixing solutions or practices or whatever anybody wants to call them is going to gloss over that, is going to band-aid that because it always comes back up. I call it same shit, different outfit, right? And that's not to me what a coach does. A coach holds space, a coach reflects, a coach monitors progress, a coach monitors your agenda. But a coach is not here to fix you. And if they're a good coach, and I say that I know that's triggering, but if they're a good coach, they're not going to look at you as if you're broken. They're
Yes.
looking at you as how can we make you feel more whole about yourself? At least that's my perspective. So for those that are hearing this right now and they're thinking, okay, maybe Erin might be someone that I need to work with. Can you tell them what it is that you help them do in terms of like letting go and kind of embracing the imperfections, as we said in the introduction?
Yeah. So I really help people just kind of see again, like where I always love like the inner orphanage thing. Like, where's your inner orphanage? Like all the children that live within you, like are operating your business versus truth. And sometimes that's through figuring out, okay, what strategies are actually going to be sustainable for you and keep you going in your business. Sometimes that's looking at where are you operating your business from the lens of a part or a protection strategy versus your truth and what does that look like and how is that playing out? That's usually like the big kicker for people because they're like, oh wow, just like everybody in this like little meat suit of mine is like running the entire show. But like my goal in all of that is that you come home to yourself and that you actually run your business in a way that's in alignment, that's sustainable, that you can keep going with, and it brings you joy and it doesn't become this like thing that you've created that you've resented or that's gotten bigger than you and you have like a weird power dynamic with it. Like I want you to have more ease in your business and I want it to feel like okay, I'm actually like living, being, breathing in my truth. Again, I'm not in like weird power under, power over dynamics with this thing that I've created, and you take your power back and you move forward to serve in the way that you want to serve. So again, sometimes that looks externally and sometimes that looks internally. And I also love the craft of coaching, as you were just saying, like defining what a coach is. Like that's a lot of my work too, is training people to become really good coaches, because I think that there's often a misconception of what coaching is versus what coaching isn't. And I love the craft of coaching. I love subconscious reprogramming. I love somatic healing and really making sure that like if you're going to go out and do this work in the world, do it with the most integrity, the depth of support, being willing to track what's happening and really providing a great client experience. So like that's really important to me too. So it's kind of always the ways that I'm kind of supporting people. It's like, do you either need alignment within your business strategy? Do we need to work on the internal shit or do you need to become better at what it is that you do?
So I'm really glad that you kind of went into that I train coaches territory because I know that I have seen you say many a times, this is important that you work with somebody who has a certification. And
Mhm.
there are a lot of people out there that don't, right? They don't have any experience. They just decided I'm a coach today, right? So for those that are watching and that don't have a coach and they're thinking about hiring a coach, why would you caution them to look at someone that has a certification above someone that doesn't?
Yeah, I'm a big believer in certification, and I'm a certification home myself. Like I love learning and getting trained. However, so here's the main reason why. So when you're working with somebody that just understands your words, so your words are 7% of your communication, they can coach you on their experience and what worked for them. However, you're a very multifaceted, different human being than probably your coach, as you should be. And if they can only coach you on that perspective, or they can only coach you on the words that you're sharing, we're missing the 99.9996%, which is your unconscious, which is the
Yeah.
emotions stored in your body, which is your limiting decisions and the programming that you've experienced. It's your lived experience that you've had. And if I just coach you on the story, I'm missing like the map, I'm missing the content. So that's why I believe that one, people should be coached on that. And two, um, having tools and modalities in your tool belt, things like hypnotherapy, EFT, somatic coaching, whatever processes that you do. A lot
Yeah.
of times, if you're just coaching somebody again on the words that they're sharing or through your experience, you're coaching on the conscious mind. The conscious mind is not where we make a lot of the transformation. It happens in the unconscious. And so, if you don't have tools that actually get into the root cause of what's happening, again, you might have a breakthrough, you might have an aha moment, you might feel fired up and ready to go, but does that change actually last? So it comes back again to what I was saying before with sustainability. It's like, I think that if you're working with somebody who has a coaching certification, they can actually help you get sustainability in your results versus just like a quick woohoo, rah, rah, here we go, exciting win.
Sorry. Cracks me up. I really enjoy you giving life and depth to that because, so many times I'm sure you've experienced this, and if not, just clean me up there. But like I have so many times people will come to me and be like, what's your specialty? And I'm like, I'm an ontological coach. I coach to the whole of you, to your
Mhm.
entire essence. And they're like, but are you, and they pick out some nuanced little thing because they had experience with a coach that was nuanced. And I'm not saying that that's wrong. But in my experience, people are a little bit confused when you tell them that you can coach to the entirety of their being. Whatever comes up, like let's tackle it, let's take it on. And like you said, let's use other tools to kind of get deeper to unearth it and make it more visible and more tangible. So it's not just like, oh, I do that sometimes, right? It's like, no, where did that come from? We're not going back in time like therapy does and like digging into like that depth of it, but you are pointing back there of like, this is where it began. This is how it perpetuated. You're kind of building the map for them forward so they can identify, at least in my mind, where the stop is going to occur, right? Okay, this is where I'm making the change. And when I say stop, I want to clean that up because I don't want people to think that that means you'll never do this thing again. I do my same shit all the fucking time. And I'm like, God damn it, it's that fucking thing I keep doing all the fucking time. Like I keep working on that fucking thing. But again, same shit, different outfit. And so I do agree with you. I think it is important to become informed about the coach that you are going to hire. And if, have a one-off session with them or a discovery session with them, because I know that some people do just dive right in because they're eager. I understand. I used to be that way as well. Like, oh, I really like you. I want what you have, thinking that what they have is going to like absorb into me through osmosis or some shit like that. Like that's not real, right? So you've touched on a lot of things that, you like about your business. You touched on a lot of things that are challenging about your business. With both these likes and dislikes, though, besides money, besides the things that you've already mentioned here today, why do you continue to sustain this profession? Why someone outside might be like, why do you two keep going and digging into yourself? Who the fuck likes that? Why do you continue to pursue it knowing that it has these challenges?
Yeah, I mean, my whole company is called the quantum ripple effect for a reason. And it's because like there's a ripple. Like I do this work. I mean, one day I hope to have a family of my own and like, I'll work on all the generational things that come with that. But it's like I do this work because I watch people that are so great at what they do, that have been best kept secrets for so long or have a big dream on their heart, like actually see their own ripple effect. And so it's like I know that this work, if I wouldn't do this work, I'd miss out on watching this person and how this work affects their relationship, their family, their business, their finances. It's like it goes so deep compared to maybe something else that somebody else is doing. And it's like I can't not do that even if I've even if I would like try to go do something else, I think it would just like tear me like apart inside. And so while it's while it's hectic and crazy sometimes, and it is hard, you know, it brings up so much of your stuff. It's like I would rather live the life that has really challenging moments that pushes me to see every part of myself and like turn a blind eye to that, because other people like need you to go first in order for them to have that permission. So it's like the ripple effect. It's going first to like have other people be able to lead themselves. And like I know that that work makes a change on this planet, whether it feels small or big sometimes, or whether it feels very niche. Like I know something is happening when people have these tools or this way of running their business. And like that's the change that I want to like keep shouting about.
Yeah, I agree. Whenever I get into relationship with a client, my first thing is to congratulate them on behalf of their family, to thank them on behalf of their family, because the work they do in that session every single time can be gut-wrenching. It can kick
Mhm.
you in your gut because you're like, the problem is me. Sometimes it is, right? And on behalf of them, you're facilitating this change so that you can be a beacon of what's possible. And then not only are you impacting yourself and how you engage in the world and in your community, you're impacting them and how they engage in the world and community. So it's always a far greater reach and a far greater dig and a far greater investment than just the individual sitting on the other side of the conversation with you. And I always try and put that into perspective of them of like, this is a brave endeavor that you're taking on to be able to identify something that's like, maybe even times you're like, I don't exactly know what the issue is, right? You're just like, I just know I'm funky. I'm feeling funky and shit ain't feeling the way I want it to feel. And it is a really big commitment that deserves continual encouragement and continual, self props, right? To be like, whoa, this shit's hard and I'm doing it. So for anybody that's watching this right now and they're like, okay, maybe I want to work with you in a business capacity, or maybe want to become one of your certified coaches and get into your certification program. For each of these things, and I've never asked anybody this question before either, what is one thing that you would say that they would need to be aware of to either work with you in a spiritual business capacity or to become a certified coach with you?
Mm. Yeah, I'll start with the certification side first. So like I'd say one thing is like the willingness to go there first. Like a big piece of value that we have in certification is like you can only take others as deep as you're willing to take yourself. So if you're not willing to take yourself into the depths, like I would say coaching is a path, at least in the work that I do, that you might want to have a question mark around. So like that's just the truth of it, because it's like we're gonna look at everything, whether you realize that that's what you're signing up for or not. But I think that that's really important. Like you should be working on yourself. You can't just. I know some therapists like that don't go to therapy, and I'm like question mark when I see that. I'm like you should be
Yeah.
working on your own thing. So like that's what I would say on the coaching side or the certification side. And on the coaching side, maybe come back to like the personal responsibility piece. Like you have that deep willingness and readiness to go, I know that it's time for me to no longer become a best kept secret in my business. I need someone that's going to like love me to the depths, but also be like, let's fucking go and call me out on my shit a little bit. And if like that's not for you, then I'm probably not the human, and that's okay. Like somebody else out there is.
Yeah. And what I hear like beneath all of that is like, this is an investment of your time, of your energy, of your money. If you're not sure that this is what's for you, like be honorable about that with yourself. Don't make
Mhm.
yourself feel bad about that.
Yeah.
Learn from your own internal cues. Like this could be the first, the first step towards that if that feels like it's a viable option for you, whether it's a certification or the coaching option. And I always say that to people when I do a discovery call and they're like, they get, because I say I'm an instigator. I am going to instigate that area that you are looking to change or to have a little bit more known awareness about. But if you're not ready for that, like be honest about that, because the last thing you want to do is get into this and then not be certain about it and then make yourself feel worse,
Mhm.
because that's not what this is designed to do. Like this is designed to build you up. And sometimes it does break you down to build you back up or break you open, right? Breaks you down to break you open. But I hear you saying like, make sure that you're ready and there's nothing to be ashamed of about that. In fact, that's probably a very responsible decision. Speaking to the responsibility piece, right? Like that's probably the most responsible thing you can do is find the investment when the time is right and you're actually ready. Like be fair to yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what final thoughts would you like to add here? Maybe something that you've already said that you'd like to expand upon, or something that you want to impart on people to take away from this conversation today?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is, again, in business, just making sure that like you're running, like just ask yourself, like, what's the energy behind the action? From what lens, which part am I running my business from? Like that's always a big thing that I'm always looking at. I'm always checking myself because the only thing that that's going to do is one, bring you more peace, bring you more alignment, and bring you more sustainability. And you owe that to yourself. You owe that to yourself to have the life, the business, the bank account, the relationship, everything that it is that you want. And that life getting there sometimes isn't always easeful on that path. But it's like don't ignore what you truly want or the way that it's going to take you to get there.
Yeah, and I also hear in there like, don't be ashamed of where you are right now if it's not where you want to be, right?
Sure.
Like we were
Yeah.
both Beachbody coaches, and that has parlayed into something different over time. Like we were different things and then different things and different things, right? Like it just starts somewhere that feels authentic and genuine, and be proud of those lily pads, right? Be proud of what got you here. So for those that are like, I love Erin, I can't get enough of Erin, where can they find you? What do you have coming up? How can they get in contact with you?
Yeah, I'm pretty much Erin Nicole coaching everywhere you go, or the energetics of business, like podcast. I have a big event that I run every year for the energetics of business. QRE is the coaching certification. So those are the main places that I hang out or have events or have ways to connect together.
And I will put all of those in the show notes for everybody to go find her and get more of her. Thank you so much for being here, my friend. I really appreciate
Yeah,
you
thank
always
you.
being forthright and honest, because you shared a lot of hard truths today that I think people need to hear. But more importantly, I think that that is exemplary of you because it shows your capacity. You know that people are capable of carrying more, right? And they don't need to be coddled. And I think that it just is who you stand in. Like that's who you are, right? You're like, I believe in your capacity. I want you to believe in it too. So thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching or listening wherever you are. As always, be good to yourself for fuck's sake. Live honestly in the dirty pretty of your life and choose to do the next right thing for you. Bye.